goodness, I get assaulted. You see the camera, I get assaulted. Okay, look, your friends are out there. We don't care. But I do as usual. Hey, it's Robert Earl out here, along with Cascade the Wonder Dog, out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Education Center in far west Texas with another project we're doing today. Now, I'm jumping around this spring from project to project to project, trying to get, but we're at the point where we're finishing things. But the reason we've got to jump around is, as most of you know, spring only comes around once a year. I missed spring this year. I got to wait for next year. Next year, I'm a year older. Now, if I was 25, it wouldn't matter, but I'm not. So every year, I get just that much slower, and pretty soon, I'm going to be a decrepit old man. But until that happens, we got to get these projects done. So, springtime, I've got chicken chicks, I've got geese, I've got ducks, I've got turkeys, and I've got plants. Plants are the important thing. Now, back behind me here is the water garden. Now, this has my water vegetables in it, and I won't go over them again, but this has the water vegetables in it. It's doing fairly well. The bullfrog tadpoles are doing well. But I had a project that I wanted to do just for looks, for eye candy, if you will, inside the greenhouse, and that was to build a lotus garden. Lotus, of course, is a water plant. Now, if you don't know the difference between a lotus and a lily sits flat on the water, the bloom is flat on the water. A lotus grows up above the water. Lotus are edible, and I'm not sure about lilies. I'm sure some lilies are edible, but lotus root is edible. It's very good. If you've ever been in a high-end Chinese restaurant, not Chung Ching's buffet, because all that crap is pre-done in New York and shipped out, but a real honest-to-goodness Chinese restaurant, you get these little things that are round and they look like Swiss cheese. They almost look like those old honeycomb cereals. That's lotus root. Very delicious. We'll eventually have some, but realistically, we're looking at 2 to 3 years before we have lotus root. But right here, we're building an 8-foot by 6-foot, roughly, lotus garden. Now, in keeping with the hydroponics setup, being off-grid and doing aquaponics, not hydroponics, aquaponics, I have to be concerned about my electricity usage in the evenings, at night. Daytime's fine because it's a brilliant sunny day here. So what we've done, and I've said this before, is we have one pump pumping the water up 11 feet in the air, and from that 11 feet, it tumbles down into various beds. This is the bottom bed here, a few inches lower than this bed, I think 4 inches lower, is the actual tank for the tilapia to go into. So this tank here that I'm standing in had to be higher. This is actually the top of the tank, these bricks. So we're going to take the liner over this. There'll be a spillway here that will spill and aerate the water garden. So what we have to do today is we have to line this pond, build it all up, get it all ready, get some dirt in the bottom of it, get it ready to turn on, because the water in here is turned off, so it's going to get stagnant pretty doggone quick in 100-degree heat. So we're going to get going on that, and I thought I'd show you the beginning. So the beginning was dig the hole, get the bricks up to the height I need. These bricks are perfectly level. They're the height I want the water garden to be. And then from here, of course, the first flood bed will be, like this much higher. So the water will tumble down and aerate, and so on until we have 3 or 4 flood beds. I'm not sure how many yet. Let's get started on lining this. I've got something rather unique to show you. Another one of my 3R principles: reuse, repurpose, recycle. And we are going to repurpose something. Let me get it to show you. Okay, step 1 is done. Now, one of the things that put me off when I was trying to learn about doing ponds and things like that was they start talking about underlayment, and they throw other words at you. I'm a sharp guy. I know what the words mean, but sometimes the stuff is confusing if you're trying to learn on your own, and they made it confusing for me. But underlayment, very simple, is something that goes down to protect the liner from rocks, glass, pieces of lumber, or a tree root that might grow through. Now, we're not worried about tree roots here, but we are worried about rocks and things that would puncture the liner, because I'm using a very thin liner here. So for underlayment, Now the liners themselves you can pay up to, well, I guess there's really no top to it, but the highest prices I've seen have been about 70 cents a square foot for a good thick liner. Underlayment seems to run about 40 cents a square foot, so 70 and 40 is $1.10 a square foot, 1,000 square feet, $1,100. I don't have 1,000 here, I've got about 80 feet here. But 80 times $1.10 is $99, something like that for a liner. Now, you know, that's not a lot of money, but it is if you don't have a weekly income from a job. In other words, living on a fixed income. I used to hate that word, which is what we do. So, again, going to our principles of the 3 R's, reuse, repurpose, recycle, we're repurposing feed bags. These are feed bags. They're plastic. They're all plastic nowadays, and I don't know whether plastic is a good thing because it saves on paper or whether it's a bad thing because it's a fossil fuel. But at any rate, we have all these plastic bags to deal with. So what I do with these is I cut the bottom out of them. So you've got, the bag is all the way open. There is a seam in here. There's a seam in the center where it's been hot glued together. Now, if you take that seam and just peel it back, like so, now you've got a piece of usable plastic for underlayment. Or if you've seen my earlier videos, I know the wind has come up, and I'm sorry. We've done everything we can with the microphone. I also use the underlayment this as a barrier, vapor barrier around the buildings that do have wood, like the horse stalls and some of the original building to the main compound. But for now, we use this as underlayment. Now it's time for me to set the main liner and get it weighted down in a way that it'll hold. Then we add water to it, let the water even it out. Let's get to that. All right, so the next step for me now is to create the spillway that's going to go from this pond that's higher up into the lower pond. And I've got the spillway all set to do. I have to put some mortar down, lay a piece of limestone that's going to have a sheet that just floods out. Now, I laid the pond liner and got it all set to where I know it's going to be, but rather than step on it and risk punching holes in it, I've rolled it up so I can work here on setting the spillway and also setting mortar all along this edge here. This is the only edge. Well, I'm not going to say the only edge. There's going to be mortar here. There might be mortar along in here, but there definitely will be rocks. But for now, we have to mortar this, and that's the next step. So I'm back. He thinks we're doing a whole new video, so here he is, Cascade the Wonder Dog. But it's been a couple of days, and I got to tell you, one of my pet peeves on YouTube has always been you never see anybody's failures, you never see their mistakes, you never see them get burned. They cut that all out. They just, let me show you the successful stuff I did. And I guess that's okay, but if you're trying to teach people, which is what I'm doing, it helps to see the failures as well sometimes and understand the failure. Let me talk about a failure today. It's been a couple of days. Today's Memorial Day. So, think of the veterans on Memorial Day. I saw a BBC article about Rolling Thunder, talking about Vietnam veterans going into Washington, D.C., and I was struck by how old they looked. Bunch of old guys in leather jackets and three-wheeled motorcycles now. You can't help the aging process, but there they were, still as proud as ever. This is the last year for Rolling Thunder, so to all you guys, it may be the last year, but don't ever think any of us will be forgotten. So anyhow, the winds come up, and we make mistakes. Everybody, when you're doing this type of thing, we make mistakes from time to time. Sometimes it's just inexperience, sometimes it's faulty material, sometimes it's just poor design that was executed, but it was poor to begin with. Now I hear the wind coming up, I don't know if it's bothering you. And then sometimes things happen where we make mistakes. Now, I've got a mistake behind me. Let me show you. I actually got ahead of myself and finished the pond. And it looks good. I would have to continue around here. You can see the spillway there, perfectly balanced. The water just sheeted off of it. It was really pretty, just like I wanted. Except, you look down here, you see this is wet. Now it's been 3 days and this is still pretty wet. I got a leak. And that leak is costing me about 150 gallons a day. And of course that's not sustainable out here. I got a leak. Now how did I get a leak? Well, I got in a hurry. It was 102 degrees here. It's May, this is our hottest month, but it's also one of our more humid months. Now other people around here will argue that August, September are. They are, but I think the problem with May is that we get the humidity in May and we're not used to it after the summer, after the winter rather. And when I say humidity, you guys in that are enduring heat in Atlanta, Miami, Jacksonville, Boston, New York City, this isn't humidity. I'm talking about 25-30%. You're dealing with 100-degree temperatures when they hit and 80-90% humidity. Totally different. Been there and I know it. I mean, try being in Singapore and Malaysia or Indonesia at that time of year, or at any time of year, at that temperature rather, and you'll see what I mean. I understand that, but for us here, it was hot. I'm not doing real well because of this burn. All that means is that I'm not as strong as I should be because my body is trying to heal the burn. So I got ahead of myself, I got impatient, and I think I got careless installing this liner. So I've done one of several things. As I was moving the liner, it was windy. It flew into some chicken wire and I carefully took it out and looked and didn't see any holes, but a tiny, tiny little hole, if you put stress on it, will open right up. When I put the liner in, the wind came up again and I got the liner a little bit too tight in a couple of spots. If I had a couple of pinholes that were there that wouldn't have been an issue because of the chicken wire, and I put tension on it, they could have opened up quite a bit. This side was stressed. The piece of liner I had was small to begin with. Bottom line, leaks. So it sounds like a big deal, but it really isn't. I have to take these capstones off. Luckily, I didn't carry some concrete them all the way around. I do have to take the spillway off, reinstall the spillway, and I have to get a new pond liner. Now that's going to be ordered and be here in a few days. So this is going to be this will be over a couple of weeks before I get this thing up and running properly. Only thing I had to plant in it were lotuses anyway, and I put the lotuses in pots in the water garden behind me, so they'll be okay until I get this up and holding water again. In the meantime, I did put a couple more containers that I had for raised beds. One over there, one here. Both of them are covered to keep the birds out. The birds will come in and they'll, the little sparrows especially, they'll eat the young tender shoots till they get up to about that high. Then they seem to stop. But anyway, I wanted to explain about getting ahead of myself and just letting the heat get to me and made a couple mistakes that are going to cost me a couple days' work. You want to avoid that if you can, but it is inevitable. Don't let anybody tell you. And anybody that's sitting in their mother's basement eating a ham sandwich is going to give me advice. I'll tell you what. Send a link to your video where you did it better, and I'll post that link. Other than that, if you don't send me a link to your video where you do it better, all we got is conversation from a guy in a basement eating a ham sandwich. But anyway, I'll be back. Well, as you folks can see by the size of my sunflowers here, been a little more than a couple of weeks. It's actually been 3 weeks. But the pond, the second water garden is up and functional behind me. Just going to show it to you real quick and then sign off. Now, as I'd said, I had to rip. I left the old liner in, but I had to rip out the what I had concreted about the rocks, which was here in the very front, and then I started around here. Ripped all that out. I put more feed bags under here. Put the new liner in, which was very big, which is what you want. You want a much bigger liner. I put the big liner in, put some water in so that I could pull it together and smooth it. Filled it up slowly and kept smoothing it and making sure I had plenty of loose material. Filled it up and had it stretched out very nicely. Then I put a piece of plywood down on that. I put sand in. I know the wind came up again. I apologize. I put some nice screened sand in on top of this to protect the liner. put a piece of plywood in the water so I could stand. Then I reset the spillway. Now that spillway weighs over 100 pounds, so it's really hard to handle. Leveled it all off, got it perfectly so the water is just sheeting off of it nicely. Concreted all this in, and I'm rocking on the inside all the way around. Then I'll concrete on the very top so it looks pretty, because this is supposed to be an ornamental garden. So as an ornamental garden, you get a little closer in case the wind is giving us trouble. As an ornamental garden, we're going to have ornamental plants in it. I've got in the corner my water lotuses. I've got an Egyptian Nile palm coming. I've got a taro plant in there. Some other ornamentals. Then where I'm sitting here, where the sunflowers are, that will be removed once we harvest all this in here. And I'm putting a patio, a little sitting patio here with my tropical ornamental plants around it inside the greenhouse. Because what fun is the greenhouse if you can't sit there and enjoy it? If it's just roaring and making noise and just sitting there growing plants, it's okay. But I like to sit in it and enjoy it. So anyhow, this is up and running. I did post this after the video on the raft bed, but the raft bed is pouring the water into this water garden. That's going to permanently do that. I just have to have a little bit better way of keeping that pipe secure. And we're going to move on with the hydroponic system from there. Today, and I forget the date, I believe it's June 19th, Wednesday, June 19th. My fish are coming. They are on the truck from UPS right now, and they'll be here. The tilapia are coming. We're going to put our first batch of tilapia in, provided they arrive alive and everything's cool with them. Then we'll order more tilapia so we have a working aquaponics system, put in the other raft beds, and we're off to the races. But this is done. I lied to you. It was a lot of work to remove all of that. I've still got a bunch of debris here to clean up. Try to avoid making a mistake like I did, but they are inevitable. We are human, and it happens. So anyhow, that's it. Everything's looking good. I'm excited. I'm waiting for the UPS truck. And that's it for now. So until the next video, everybody, it's Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Education Center in Far West Texas. See you later.